If you own a condo in Vancouver, you need to hear this. We're heading into the slowest months of the year with more inventory than active buyers, and condo prices are continuing to fall. This is one of the toughest environments we've seen in years, and it's catching a lot of people off guard. In today's video, we're going to break down exactly what's happening right now in the condo market, why November and December are making things even worse for sellers, and what this all means for resale owners. We're going to touch on pre-sale buyers and anyone thinking about making a move. Before we get into it, guys, my name is Ryan McMillan, a local realtor here in Vancouver. If you're new to the channel or you've been hanging out watching the videos, you like what you've been seeing and you haven't subbed yet, go down, subscribe to the channel, share the videos and like the videos. That all helps out the channel. So let's waste no time. This is one of the most important updates that I've made in a long time. Let's get into it. So let's start with the big picture. Across Greater Vancouver, condo inventory, we know it's surging. We're seeing some of the highest levels of active listings that we've seen in years. So what does this mean? You're going to have more units. You're competing for the same buyers. You got longer days on market and more price reductions and a very noticeable drop in investor activity. We've been seeing this go on for a while now, but then you add rates, strat insurance, carrying costs, and economic uncertainty. These are heavily weighing on the demand. Now, normally this time of the year, November, December, already slows the market down. But when you combine high inventory and soft demand, you get exactly what we're seeing right now. A condo market that is struggling across multiple segments. So what's this mean for the resale sellers right now? If you own a condo, if you're owning and trying to sell, you're in a completely different landscape than what we've seen for years. Buyers right now have options, and there's a ton of them. Buyers, they have time and they have leverage. You're seeing in many buildings, you're not competing with one or two listings. You're competing with identical floor plans, identical layouts, and multiple units stacked above and below you. So, and really, when you think about it, the truth is this: well-priced, high-quality units, they will sell, but everything else overpriced, dated, it's poorly presented, it's sitting sometimes for months. A lot of times, it won't even sell right now. It is such a buyer's market with the condo segment that you got to go that extra mile. I've seen things, for example, buyers want every little thing. They want new hardware, freshly painted walls, everything you can think of. Buyers will put it on their list. And a lot of times, really, for you got to think about it: could this be a deal breaker? Because you know what? They can just walk away, go to the unit next door, and they'll do that exact same thing for them. Guys, look, a lot of times in a balanced market or especially a seller's market, you can see it as is. We're not touching it. Those days right now aren't here. They're dead for the time being. Right now, you have to cater to buyers if you really want to get this deal done. If you need to sell, you will go the extra length in this climate, or you just won't sell your unit. And for some people, that's okay. A lot of people maybe thought they'd sell, maybe throw something on the wall, see if it stuck, especially early in the year. We saw sellers that they didn't want to adjust their price at all. They were looking at last year's numbers. Maybe they were looking at a neighbor's comp. That's okay because things take time. But now, as time has gone on, a lot of sellers have realized that's not going to happen. That's actually probably impossible for anything like that to happen. So that's fine. Then if you don't need to sell, you're not in the climate of needing to sell your unit, then that's fine. Don't lower your price. But if we don't now come to terms with the market, then your unit will stay and not sell at all. You need to price based on today's reality, or the market, guys, it's just going to make the correction for you. And this is why we're seeing these incremental price declines month over month over month. You're not seeing like a dramatic drop, but you're seeing these steady ones, and steady declines in a slow season create a very difficult environment for anyone that does need to sell right now. So you have to stay ahead of it. Let's talk pre-sale though, because this is a whole different segment, but it needs to be talked about. A lot of people now see the pre-sale market for something completely different. Pre-sale buyers back from 2021 and 2022 are now closing. Back then, rates were low, the market was hot, developers were selling out projects quickly. People were putting down these massive deposits, believing the value would rise by completion. Let's fast forward to right now. Those pre-sales are completing in a very different market. Just over the span of a few years, when you go to close on a pre-sale, the bank orders an appraisal. The bank only lends based on what the unit's worth today, not what you put down, not the deposit you put down 3 years ago. So, um, it doesn't matter what happened 2, 3 years ago. So if you bought, let's say for 800,000, the appraisal comes back, let's say 650,000, the bank will only lend based on the 650, not the 800. And you must come up with the difference in cash. For some buyers, impossible. And that's where the danger kicks in. So here's the real pre-sale legalities, because most people think, hey, you know what? It really sucks, but if I can't close, I'll just lose my deposit, 100 grand, 150 grand, 80 grand. But that's not how pre-sale contracts work in BC. The pre-sale agreements are legally binding contracts, and developers write them to protect themselves, not you. If you default on completion, you're on the hook for much more than your deposit. And now developers are actually going for people. So your full deposit gone. And now the price difference, if the developer has to resell your unit for less, so like if you committed to 800K and they sell for 650, they can pursue you for that $150,000 loss. The developer's legal fees, any carrying costs, interest, and marketing expenses caused by your default. This is written directly in most pre-sale contracts, and in a soft market like this, like I said, developers might enforce it. They have legal teams, they have financing to satisfy, and they cannot afford widespread buyer default. This is why walking away from a pre-sale can be one of the most financially devastating mistakes in real estate. Here's some other pre-sale risks buyers forget or even just aren't even aware about. Assignments are no longer easy. Developers have to approve them, and assignment fees can be 2 to 5%. And you have to sell higher than your contract price just to break even. So in this market, it's not going to happen. Closing costs substantial. GST 5%, legal fees, strata adjustments, new build extras. It all adds up. Appraisal issues are your responsibility. Developer has zero obligation to lower the price. If you can't secure financing, that's considered your default. So that's why people ask me about pre-sales all the time. I am so against getting any of my clients into a pre-sale, especially when you can consider the record amount of inventory that's out there today. Now, going back to 2021 and 2022, I understand that there was a lot of, especially in Vancouver, this FOMO effect, the fear of missing out. People just assumed that the market was going to continue to be on fire forever. The old, hey, what was your place worth last year? What's it worth this year? I probably made 100 grand. All these numbers people are throwing out. And we did see a good run of pre-sales. There was a time when you could put down a deposit and a year later flip it for six figures. There was that time, just like any other type of market. But again, people aren't reading the fine print. They think that we can just walk away, even though $100,000 is a substantial amount of money to walk away from. Sometimes you take a loss, but it's all these other things that people maybe either just overlook. They didn't have a realtor, because a lot of times you don't need a realtor to walk into these presentation centers. And this is where a realtor is important, to walk into these presentation centers. But you can walk into these shiny presentation centers, talk to, some of the people that are working behind those desks. You look at the model, you pick your unit, they give you a bunch of stuff to read in a contract. You're excited. Everything's glitz and glamour. You try to figure out, okay, well, I got to come up with my 5% and 5% later, whatever it was at the time, usually 15 or 20% overall, to secure your unit. But people weren't even thinking about this, because this wasn't something you thought about a few years later, that we were going to be in this type of market. And unfortunately, this is where we are. And unfortunately, people have been caught off guard because they didn't know the fine print. They didn't know they could actually be sued by a developer, because people working at the presentation center, guys, they are not going to tell you that. They are going to make sure you just lock in your unit, take your money, and it's on you when it's completion time for you to close with your lender. That has nothing to do with developer. They just want their money. So now if your unit is worth $200,000 less, you better figure out how to come up with that money, or potentially be sued. And like I said, developers are now coming after people, because as you can tell, they don't want to take a loss either. So if they can make up that $150,000, $200,000, they will do that. So how it all connects, talking pre-sale, talking resale. Resale condos are soft. condos are soft across the board. And so new pre-sales and resales are going to compete. Some people might ask, well, why would I buy an older condo at a premium when there is new inventory and that new inventory is pricing aggressively? There's tons of incentives right now. So it puts more pressure too on the resale sellers of a condo. So there's just all this competition adding up for everybody, and everybody's just trying to over compete. And that's why you're seeing these price drops, these incentives for pre-sales. So it becomes a real tough spot for sellers. Let's talk about who can win. So even in a tough market, there's still great opportunities, especially for, like I said, buyers, move up buyers. If you're selling your condo and buying a townhouse or detached, it's one of the best windows you'll ever get because the price gap has narrowed. Also, first time buyers. This is the this is the first time in years you can take your time, you can negotiate, you choose between multiple units, get subject conditions galore as much as you want, and completely avoid bidding wars. So all these extra things as a buyer, first time buyer, you really get to take your time. And when I talk about making that move up, especially getting out of that condo, you have to price aggressively though. So if your listing is updated, it's move-in ready, well presented, and like I said, aggressively priced, you can still sell, and you can sell quickly, but it's got to be smart and priced right. You cannot miss the mark. So bottom line, we're in a soft, high inventory condo market heading into the slowest season of the year. Resale sellers are competing harder than ever. Pre-sale buyers from 21 and 22 are facing serious legal and financial risk, and buyers finally have negotiation power again. This is not a market to guess in. You guys need a strategy, you need preparation, and you need accurate information, not outdated assumptions from your neighbor from last year. So, guys, if you're trying to navigate this, whether you're buying, selling, or preparing to close on a pre-sale, please reach out to me. Again, I'm Ryan McMillan, a realtor here in Vancouver. I'm powered by eXp Realty. You can call me. All my stuff is in the links, my description. Book a call with me in my calendar. I would love to walk you through the process and talk real estate. Guys, that's it for this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And until next time, guys, I'll see you on the next one.